Hey guys, this is Fergal from Poker VIP, and we are back for our fourth and our final installment of the 20NL coaching series over on Betfair Poker. So those of you who have been watching the series as we go will be well aware of the format that we're going with. We are playing two tables of 20NL speed poker side by side. I will be talking through my thought process as we go. We'll be talking through each and every spot as they arise. So far we've been beating up the games pretty badly, so hopefully we're going to be able to continue that trend and book another winning session to close out the series. So we opened pocket nines here from the cutoff. We got 3-bet by this gentleman, and we have had a bit of experience with in the previous couple of days when we've been playing, so he does seem like one of the regular players. We're never folding pocket nines to a smallish 3-bet, so we're happy to go ahead and click the call button. When we don't flop a set and there is the overcard and he chooses this size and he goes on the larger side for a 3-bet pot, it seems to me like he is going to be fairly value heavy on this kind of board. Like, we're going to have some decent number of Queen X, and we're going to be checking pretty much our entire range here to him. There's no need for him to go this large, so when he does, it feels to me like he likely has a value hand and is looking to get stacks in by the river. And pocket nines just is not going to go and play that well. So we're going to go ahead and make a somewhat nitty fold. We can definitely consider peeling once there, but as I said, it was kind of more so his sizing there that led me against that. And the ace-4 suited, obviously a standard open. It's multi-way, and this is one of the worst possible boards for us, so we're pretty much just checking and giving up on this board. The king isn't a horrible card for us to barrel, but the fact that there's 3 diamonds on board now leads me to not. I wasn't planning on barreling it anyway. If that was like a king of spades and it was checked to us, I think I would be up for firing a bluff on it, because we can obviously really credibly rep king X after checking back the flop. When it gets led into us now, though, we have a very straightforward fold, so no issues there at all. We've had one decent pot over on the left table just while I was getting stuff set up. We ran a large 3-bet bluff with king 6 suited, and we had to double barrel to. With the flop went multi-way, we flopped a gut shot, and we ended up double barreling to take the pot down. We didn't improve, obviously, and we're going to be raising our pocket fours to the button. 4-5 suited is not going to be good enough for a defend, unfortunately, even in position. It's not going to flop well enough, often enough to continue here, I don't think. Which is upsetting. I don't like folding to 3-bets with those types of hands, but as I said, it's not going to be a winning proposition long term. 7-10 offsuit, we're going to go ahead and stick it in the muck where it belongs. King deuce suited is actually kind of close versus the min raise. I think we're going to go ahead and click call. Actually, no, we're going to use this as a 3-bet bluff rather than a call. Definitely too strong to fold, I think, and I think it's going to work better just using it as a 3-bet bluff rather than calling and playing out of position with king rag. I wouldn't hate a call there, though. Folding is definitely my least favorite option for sure. We're just getting too good a price to consider folding. And ace-5 versus blind. When we get 3-bet, we're just going to go ahead and fold. We're definitely getting bluffed off the best hand there sometimes, but we're never way ahead, and it's going to be fairly tricky to play that out of position, even if we do flop an ace. So I'm happy just going ahead and folding. 10-7 suited, we are for sure opening. I'd be much more inclined to call this type of hand to a 3-bet. Now, I'm not saying I definitely will, but versus the ace-5, because ace-5 has so many domination issues that 10-7 suited doesn't, it's a much better candidate to call 3-bets in those kind of situations where 3-bet ranges are going to consist of a lot of ace-x and so on. 8-9 suited, we're obviously opening standard enough. We get one caller on the button, and the blinds have yet to act, so potentially might get to see a multi-way pot here, which would be fantastic news with our type of hand. All we need to do now is flop something strong. I'm presuming this guy is just going to time out. I'm guessing that he doesn't actually have a decision, he's just away from his computer or something along those lines. Seems like that's correct, so they fold. So that's a pretty good flop. we still only have 9 high, but it's about the best flop for us that we don't improve on. We're just going to be betting again around half pot, seems about right to me. We have all the outs in the world. I don't really expect to get raised here that often. I think when he's just called in position, he's going to show us a decent number of 10x, and so if we bet ourselves, I actually could have made it a little bit smaller than half pot, but by betting ourselves it allows us to set our own price. I'm not expecting to get raised that frequently, as I don't think he's ever bluffing here. I think he's going to show us a 10 here, an absolute ton. But as I said, people don't really raise the turn that often, so it wasn't really a concern of mine, and I wanted to be able to set my own price to see the river. If we check the turn to him, it's very likely that he would have bet himself a larger amount than what we bet. And obviously we have 9 high, so we're going to fold. So the Queen Jack hand, we have brought it in for a 3-bet blind versus blind. The flop comes ace high. We're just going to fire a standard half pot c-bet, see if we can take this down with our Queen high. And we're going to be calling and seeing a flop in position with the Queen Jack suited over on the right table, barring any significant action. We get called here by Believer 1963, and we are pretty much finished with our hand now, as upsetting as it is. And he's going to show us an ace here, an absolute... Okay, he called us with the Queen Jack, so he somehow managed to chop that pot, which is bizarre. I'm not sure what that call was on the flop, but that's kind of... that's not really indicative of the kind of play that we've seen. Usually I've found people behaving fairly honestly. Now, the pools have been very, very weak in general from what I've seen. That's a whole different type of weak, though. That's just insane, in my opinion, that call. That makes no sense at all to me. But yeah, people seem to be behaving fairly honestly to c-bets and so on. So we're going to be c-betting a lot of boards that are good for our range and bad for our opponents, and expecting to not get played back at that often at all. It just seems to be the sort of standard course in these games. We're going to be using pocket threes as a 3-bet here over on the right table. Calling is fine as well, but I think I prefer using it as a 3-bet. And we're just going to go ahead and same kind of strategy here. We're just going to fire once here. Our hand is going to be good a ton here, but I don't really want to check call this hand. So I think just putting in a small c-bet, looking to hopefully take this down here and now. And when the diamond rolls off, our hand is going to be in trouble fairly often. If this was the king of diamonds or the ace of diamonds, I would be up for firing a second barrel. The 10 of diamonds, though, I don't think it's a particularly good candidate. The ace is quite a good card for us to bet, though, so that's what I'm going to do. We can really credibly rep some decent 2-pair hands with the ace-x here. So let's see if we can get this through. It's very tricky for him to call down with just a lone queen here as well, which I think he's going to show us a decent chunk of the time. Unfortunately, we get raised on, and no harm, no foul. We just stick our hand in the muck. Never fun when those don't work out, but as I said, if you don't get caught with your hand in the cookie jar from time to time, you are not bluffing enough. That's not even close. Deuce 3 suited, we are going to check it and just see a flop. I don't really want to go raising this type of hand when we're out of position. And we flop some very, very weak backdoor equity. We're just going to go ahead and fold. We don't really have a hand that we're looking to continue with. King Queen suited, we are going to use as a 3-bet. You'll notice a fairly standard theme. I will be 3-betting quite aggressively, especially when the games are shorter handed, when we're only kind of 4 and 5 handed quite often in a lot of these hands. So King Queen suited, more than good enough to bring it in for a 3-bet. And we flop top over on the left table, so we're going to be going for a standard enough c-bet. No action over there, unfortunately, though. I'm not loving the 4x sizing here. I still think on the button we can call and see a flop, but I'm definitely going to be playing this hand somewhat cautiously versus the unorthodox 4x open. I'm not expecting this hand to get squeezed that often light by the blinds here from the 4x, so I think we're fine just to go ahead and call and see a flop quite often. I'm going to float this hand once like this. This board is much better for our range than it is for the under the guns range, so unless he has an overpair, I'm expecting him to give up on the turn quite often. So I'm going to call once and see if he barrels again. We're just going to fold, and if he bets again, we are going to fold. His sizing is very interesting. He has made it very small, which seems kind of like weakness to me, but again, we're going to stick with our original plan and just fold if he barrels. If he had bet like really small, I would just consider that a check and put in a raise, but I mean, it's not a completely insignificant amount. Like, it's not like he min bet. And as I said, we're just going to go ahead and stick with our original plan. It's very strange sizing. I'm not sure what kind of hand he's doing that with. My guess is that it's not a hand he's planning on folding. Like, it might be, say, a middling overpair with no spade, perhaps. That would make a little bit of sense to me. But I don't like his sizing no matter what he has, to be honest. Pocket eights, we're obviously bringing it in for an open. And we're going to be using Queen 9 as a steal from the button. I don't like folding to min raises at all, but unfortunately 6-3 offsuit is just not going to be good enough for a defend. We're just going to be checking back here and maybe firing on a decent number of rivers. The 3 is not one of them though. I think if we were going to win this pot, maybe we should have bet on an earlier street, but if we were going to win this pot, we would have had to bet on an earlier street, I think. Although we can fold out king highs probably. Queen high has some showdown value as well though, so actually yeah, we're just going to check this back and just give this one up. I don't think we're going to fold out ace high successfully. We're definitely not folding out a 6 for sure. So yeah, that's absolutely fine. We have the third nut flush draw over here with 2 overcards to the board. We're just going to go ahead and fire a c-bet. And jack 7 is going to be good enough for a steal, blind versus blind. We get called. We're just going to fire once. We have a lot more ace-x than he does, so I would expect him to play fairly honestly here. Although, as I said, based on the call that we saw earlier on where Queen Jack called us, maybe not, but obviously that was a different guy. Queen 9, we're just going to fold versus the earlier position open. We get called on the button with the Queen 10 suited, which does not fill my heart with joy, but it's still a decent enough hand. When we get 3-bet though, we are just going to stick it in the muck. It's going to be pretty difficult to show a profit with this hand, even in position. And Queen 6 suited, definitely good enough for a steal. We're going to fire at least one street here. We have some decent backdoor equity with the backdoor flush draw and a decent backdoor straight draw-ish. Any 5, any diamond, we can continue to barrel. Any 7, we may consider barreling. And any deuce, we may also consider barreling. But most importantly, we have the fold equity on the flop, which we just take it down without having to do any of the above, which is an absolutely fine result by me. Pocket queens, obviously opening it from any position and hoping for some action. Everyone at the table is full stacked, which is quite nice. No action so far. Is the big blind going to oblige us and come along? They are. So no overcards, which is good news. We're going to go ahead and bet for value here. And we take it down on the flop, which again, not a horrible result. I would have preferred a little bit more action, but we're not going to complain. We win the pot, which is the main thing. And ace 9, we're going to be bringing it in for a raise. If the button raises, we're probably going to use it as a defend, but we don't have to do that. We can take initiative in the pot and bring it in for a raise ourselves. And similarly, Queen 9, we're going to be opening it up from mid position. Or early position, should I say, at a 4-handed table. I'm confusing myself naming the different positions when there's only 4 of us at the table. When we get 3-bet, we're just going to go ahead and fold. Our hand is not going to be great. We don't have the best blockers either to use it as a 4-bet bluff, so I don't really think that this game plays HUDless. I don't really think using 4-bet bluffing is going to be that important part of my game plan overall here. We're going to be playing reasonably straightforward ABC aggressive poker, and I think that's going to be more than good enough to beat these games at a very comfortable margin. Like as I said, the overall standard does seem to be quite poor in general. There's definitely a huge amount of value in the games for sure in comparison to the similar stakes on other sites. So I will be continuing to play this site myself for sure. King Deuce suited, we are probably going to use it as a 3-bet bluff as we are with the King 3 suited. So let's go ahead. When it's folded to us though, we're just going to use it as a standard open, blind versus blind. It's definitely an above average hand. This board is pretty horrible. It's going to be really bad for our range in general as well. So like a c-bet here just is not going to be that believable. So we're just going to be check giving up here when we do get called, unfortunately. Like as I said, that range is going to be much better for his range than it is for ours. So a c-bet on our end would just look outright suspicious, and I wouldn't expect to be getting many hands that have connected to fold very frequently, and he's definitely going to have some floats there in his range as well. So as I said, I think it's just going to be a recipe for disaster and just going to be firing money, good money after bad in that sort of situation. Here we check back the flop on the right table because it's going to be nearly impossible to get 3 streets of value from worse. So we check back to potentially induce bluffs on the turn to give him some opportunity to catch up if he has an unpaired hand, and to get called by some of his second pair type hands as well after we check back the flop. Unfortunately, we didn't do any of the above though. We just took it down on the turn, which again isn't a horrible result, but not what we were looking for. We pick up the gut shot and we still have the overcard here on the left table, so we're going to go ahead and fire out at this and see if we can take this down. We do not, but the ace is he's going to show us some flushes for sure, but he's also going to show us a decent number of lone jacks, I think, so we're going to go ahead and use this and try to bluff him off this. We get snap called, unfortunately. He has top 2 pair. Obviously, we're never getting top 2 pair to fold, and that wasn't in my... I wouldn't... Like if obviously, he's going to show us ace jack sometimes, but he's also going to show us hands like king jack, queen jack, and so on. And those types of hands, they probably will have to fold to a large bet in the river, but ace jack, obviously, we're never going to fold that out. I do like my bet, though, in general. I think it's going to fold out more of his range than we're getting called by, so it's going to end up being profitable in the long run, I think. And you saw there, like even with top 2 pair, with the potential flush there, which we're definitely flushes in our range, he's not willing to raise with what's likely the best hand, because obviously a raise is only going to get called by worse, or very likely will at least. So if he is in a situation where he just has a lone jack, it's a very, very tricky spot for him to consider a hero call. We get squeezed, unfortunately, over on the left table with the king 10 suited. We would have liked to see a multi-way flop there, but we don't get to, unfortunately. And the queen jack here, we likely have the best hand here. I don't see a huge amount of value in betting. We're gonna, that's one of the worst cards for us. We're now probably gonna just check fold. I was hoping to instigate a bet by Tajens. When we don't though, and the ace rolls off and he does come alive, unfortunately we actually just have to fold. I definitely could have considered a lead here on this flop, but I don't hate checking and trying to induce as well. Like, there's not a huge amount of bad cards there for us. The any ace and any king, that's 8 cards in the deck, but obviously there's a huge amount of complete blank cards that will fall as well, so I don't mind checking and giving 1 free card. It's just unfortunate with the run out that came. 7-8 suited, going to be good enough for a button steal. And king queen suited over on the right table, obviously a very, very standard open. We're not going to be folding to a 3-bet either. And pocket jacks, we are going to be bringing it in for a 3-bet versus the button for us, and if the button folds to us, we're going to just be opening it ourselves, obviously. Pocket 5s, again, going to be good enough for an open. If we get raised before we act, we are going to call in position. No action with the jacks, unfortunately, but over on the right table with the pocket 5s, we have a standard open. And ace queen suited, we are more than likely going to be 3-betting this hand, as we are the ace king suited. So we have all of the Broadway diamonds going on at the tables at the moment. So just going to be using our standard 4x out of position raise here. And ace queen, we're definitely going to be squeezing as well. So I'm just going to size it up slightly because of the extra caller that's come along. So, pretty good flop for us. We have 2 overcards to the board, we have the nut flush draw, and we are going to be betting and not folding if we get raised here. The left table is nowhere near as good a board for us though. We're going to start off with a check here. Ace queen does have some showdown value, but not a massive amount. He's going to show us a decent number of pocket pairs and so on. We're just going to try to get this to showdown. When he checks back, it's definitely, our hand definitely has a lot of promise. The deuce on the river is terrible. All of the ace-x that we dominate is now chopping with us, which is terrible news for us. This is a peculiar line. I'm going to make a somewhat crying call here. I just don't see how he can have that strong value here for his pot size raise. So yeah, his line just made absolutely no sense to me there. I was expecting to chop there quite a lot, but his pot sizing was just super, super suspicious. Like, the chances of him checking back a jack there twice is very, very slim. And the chances of him having a deuce there again in like a very large 3-bet pot is almost non-existent. So his line just made absolutely no sense at all. So fortunately we were good, so we win a much larger pot than we had any right to given the cards that were on display. So we're not going to complain. Always good news when we win a pot that we don't really expect to, when we're expecting to chop very often. When we actually get the win, it's great news. And over in the left table, it was a big blind special, 4-9, we got to check it. We flop a pair, but it's a very, very drawy board, and it's the worst possible pair with a very, very bad kicker. We're never going to be able to continue here. Similarly with the threes, it's a pretty horrendous board for us, so we're just going to go ahead and fold. We are going to be bringing the ace-9 suited in for a raise, though. Queen 5, not going to be good enough though from early position, four-handed. Ace-9 suited, we're going to have a decision if we get 3-bet. I probably wouldn't have folded it to a 3-bet, depending on sizing, but I wouldn't have been thrilled about it. It's not the kind of hand that I'm really very keen about calling 3-bets with, but as I said, in a four-handed game, the dynamics are going to be a little bit more aggressive than normal. We're going to assume that the shorter stacker player here isn't going to be one of the best players in the pool, so we're definitely going to be stealing as wide as we can. And now, we get 3-bet, but we get min 3-bet, we're getting just way too good a price to fold. We're getting 4-1 in our money, and like this is the kind of hand where we can potentially stack him versus a strong, if he is a strong pocket pair, for example. We're just going to go ahead and raise right now. I don't love the king. He's definitely going to show us some ace-king here, but we're still aiming for stacks here. Or sorry, he's going to show us some pocket kings, rather, should I say. But we're just playing for stacks here. We're never folding our trips here versus this player. Unfortunately, he finds the fold, though. That's a prime example of why you should never min 3-bet. It just allows way too much nonsense where you're not really sure how to continue to come along. I'm guessing that the king was a pretty bad card for us there. I'm assuming that he must have had some sort of overpower to the board. I'm guessing something like 10s, jacks, that type of hand would make the most sense to me. But still kind of surprised he folded on the turn. I mean, I'm not going to show him a ton of king X there, so. Ace-4 suited, we can go either way here. We can flat call and we can bring it in for a 3-bet. I'm going to opt to flat call this time. Same kind of situation, blind versus blind here with the king-jack. We can definitely consider raising. We can also flat call. I'm absolutely fine with either or. And when he chooses this sizing over on the right table, we're going to go ahead and fold. And we're going to check to the raiser with the ace-4, and we're not planning on folding. When it goes check, check, we're going to start betting for value ourselves and look for value from his hands like Jack, Queen, King, Jack, and so on. The Jack of Hearts is a pretty bad card for us. The good news is if he has a better ace, we're now chopping, but I don't think that's overly likely. He will show us some Jack X, as we just mentioned, some hands like Jack, Queen, Jack 10, and so on. He's also going to show us some King X hands, though, which we're still ahead of. This is a close one. This is a close one. I think getting the price we're getting, I don't think I can fold, but I don't love this at all. So we chop it up, which is a fine result. I'm pretty surprised you didn't bet that flop, but I guess the check back makes a little bit of sense. It is a fairly dangerous board as well. I would probably have put in a small bet though, for sure. And I think we get a little bit fortunate there to chop it up, but we're not going to complain. 6-7 suited, again, one of these hands where I can take it either or. Once I'm not folding, we can either 3-bet it, we can call it. Calling would usually be my preference because 6-7 suited just plays quite well, even out of position. If it was a suited one-gapper, like say for example 6-8 suited, I would be more inclined to use it as 3-bet, but the suited connector varieties we can definitely just see a flop and encourage multi-way action with. 7-6 offsuit is going to be a fold, and we're just going to go ahead and complete with the 4-5 suited. They're bringing this in for an ISO raise wouldn't be absurd by any stretch, but again, same kind of logic as we were just discussing. Using it just as a call because it plays quite well is going to be absolutely fine. And on the left table, we flop a pair, we flop a gut shot, and we have a backdoor flush draw. I'm not planning on folding just yet. The ace is a good card. It reduces the combos of ace-x he can have. But the problem is, I think we're going to face a second barrel here quite often. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do against it, to be perfectly honest. I'm going to wait for see what sizing he chooses and go from there. So we just get to check this down. So our hand has a very decent probability of being good, and if we are behind, I think it's going to go check fairly often. Like if he has a hand like pocket jacks, pocket tens, I don't think he's likely to bet it here. But our pair of fives is indeed good. It's one of these interesting situations where I would have been more confident in our hand if he had actually bet it there rather than if he had checked it back, because obviously if he's completely bluffing, his only way of winning the pot is to take a stab at it, whereas if he has some showdown value, he's much more inclined to check that back, I feel, rather than going for thin value with the hand like pocket tens, pocket jacks, and so on. And we are just going to be looking to play for the shorter stacks, full stack on most runouts here, I think. If we can, let me just see. If we bet 2, it'll be... No, we're not going to be able to play for stacks, but we're going to be able to play for a fairly decent pot, so we're going to just continue our plan of betting. Pocket threes, we're just going to flat call, see if we can see a flop, and flop a set, hopefully. We do not. Been a distinct lack of sets so far this session, but, you know, these things, they do happen. We did flop trips with 6-7 offsuit, so we can't complain too much, I guess. 8-9 suited, we are going to take the initiative, bring it in for a raise. We have position, there's no reason not to. Again, we're going to assume he's a half-stacking player who is limping blind versus blind. We're going to assume he is not one of the better players in the pool, so we're looking to build pots in position against him for sure. This lead has me concerned a little bit, but I'm not planning on folding just yet. We just binked the middle 2 pair, which is fantastic news. If he has a jack, I think he's very unlikely to be able to fold it at any point. I think I'm just going to click the call button again and see if we can get one last bet out of him if he is bluffing, and if not, we're just going to stick the money in ourselves, I think. So it seems like he was bluffing, so our pair of 8s is probably good on the flop if he's folding there. I think it's very, very unlikely that he folds a jack there. And we're just going to be betting big for value here with our trip queens. Unfortunately, we get the fold, but again, not an insignificant pot, so we're not all that unhappy either. And again, in position, we're going to be ISO rate. Actually, this versus this stack size, this may not have been particularly good. I didn't realize he was as short as he is, but it can't be that bad either. So we have a flush draw and we have a gut shot. We are getting a fairly good price. I don't love this jam by any stretch, but I think we've too much equity to consider folding. Yeah, we're a solid favorite here versus his range, so we completely break off though, unfortunately. So any 7, 8, 9 or heart would have done it there for us, and we would have stacked them and had another €11 in the kitty. I think I saw the percentage come up there. I think we were a 60-something% favorite, which I didn't actually realize we were that high a favorite, but yeah, it's going to be a pretty good call overall in the long run for sure. Ace King, easy 3-bet. King Jack suited, we're just using it as a 3-bet in position. Not as easy as the Ace King, but it's not going to be bad either. We've got a decent number of blockers to his Queen X, so we're going to go ahead and fire once here, although we do have a lot of backdoor equity, which checking back here wouldn't be absurd, but I think I prefer the bet. So we pick up the potential flush draw. I think now we do check back. He called, and he called us very, very quickly. Usually when people call very quickly, it just means they don't really have much of a decision. So we're just going to check back, see if we can bink our flush. Obviously it's very, very unlikely, but king high will occasionally be ahead of some diamond flush draws, but very, very rarely, so that's being particularly optimistic. And when he does bet, it's again simple fold. So we're going to be wrapping it up fairly shortly. So I think this session, I know we won a decent-ish amount over on the left table. We definitely lost some early on the right table, so I'm not actually sure how we fared completely overall. I think this was a reasonably break-even session. But as I said, over the series that we've run, we've definitely won ourselves a nice number of stacks overall. So just shows you that the games, they are incredibly beatable. And as I said, I would definitely recommend anyone who is playing any sort of speed poker variant, I would highly recommend checking out these pools because they are exceptionally soft from what I've seen. Now granted, I don't have a massive amount of experience in them, but from what I have seen, they are, as I said, very, very weak. And there is a huge amount of free money there for the taking, essentially. So as I said, this has been Fergal from Poker VIP. I hope you guys have enjoyed the videos as much as I've enjoyed making them. If you have any questions or queries, as always, leave them in the comments. I will endeavour to get back to you as soon as possible. And I will be back again, no doubt, soon for another series. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Take care.